Welcome to the Wise Take DFS podcast NFL lineup review show for Week 10. This is the premiere episode for us here at Wise Take, going over last week's or yesterday's games. I'm joined here today by my two Wise Take regulars. Actually, we got a newbie, obviously Johnny. You can follow him at GDaddy80, correct? And we got also my man Cam. You can follow him at Cam GDFS or at Cam DFS. It's down there. I don't see it right now. So, and obviously you can follow me at Patio Joe Ref. So guys, what we're gonna do here today, we might go over a little bit of lineups. We might just basically show you what the Millie Maker lineups on both FanDuel and DraftKings are, and that's cool and all. But what we're basically gonna do is we're all gonna go around and say how our days were yesterday, what's tilting us a little bit, and then we're going to go through like position by position what was good and what was bad. I mean, obviously yesterday was a Sunday that I will say was very weird. When you have all of the chalk that did not hit, and basically if you had a share of maybe 5 or 6 players, you probably made money yesterday. So with that being said, for me, we're just going to get right into it. For me, I did okay. I lost a little bit, but I had a couple lineups. One lineup I had was in the $25 lineup in that cash, so that salvaged a little bit. And my cash lineup did cash too, so I wound up salvaging that. But it was kind of frustrating because basically, like all the chalk that we were on, all the running backs did not hit, and there was some defensive scoring changes in the Jacksonville game that made my cash game lineup a little bit down. And Adam Humphries, the free square of the day, proved to be 2 for 20, being 1x was not good enough. So for me, I had a decent day. It wasn't a 0 days, which I'm cool with that. I hate having those weeks where you don't win anything. So I won a little bit back, and it wasn't like a terrible day. Johnny, tell us how you did yesterday.
It was a rough day. I did a show Saturday night, and I didn't make any lineups until after Saturday night. And then after I started making the lineups, a little birdie was telling me like, you don't play cash games, but maybe today's the day you should play cash games. So luckily I did, because if it wasn't for playing any cash games, I would have had a wreck of a night. I lost some money, but hopefully tonight's slate will help me recoup all my money. So I have a little bit of a sweat going on from the Thursday, Monday slate still. So we'll see how that goes.
All right, Cam, how did you do?
Well, I had Leonard Fournette and Gronk on every single team, so it's kind of self-explanatory.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't terrible. I mean, I had some rosters where I hit on everything besides like Jiggs, D, Fournette, and Gronk, and then like everyone else went for like 20 to and then like 115, I think, other than that. So it would have been good if I could have got what I expected out of Gronk and Fournette, but we'll learn from it, and that's why we're doing this show, so we can go over it and see what we missed and what we're doing right and wrong. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, I mean, before we get into the position by position, there was something last night. I called our man Paulie, and I was talking to him about it, and I was talking to CK about it, and I'm going to talk to you two guys about it, and I'm starting to wrap my head around this thought in my brain, and because it's so easy to do in baseball, but in football it was so hard for me to do, and I'm starting to believe that everybody's fadeable now in football. Just like baseball.
Yep.
Everybody's fadeable. Variance now in football is so much greater than what is given credit for. I think that you have in baseball, you can do X, Y, and Z. You can go to this webpage, you look at these numbers, you look at this picture, you look at that. There's such a process that leads you to a player. And I think at some point in our football, we're trying to make football more of a numbers game that leads us to certain things. And most of the time, there's so many other variables that can come in to where that person's not even going to be featured. The game script didn't go that way. There was fumbles, there was turnovers, there was sacks. Yesterday, Tyron Smith being out affected all of Dallas and Dak Prescott. Dak all of a sudden was not everybody thought he was a great play because no Zeke. He was going to pass more. Tyron Smith is out. They dominate. Dak has a bad day. If he didn't run it in and run, he wouldn't have had anything. So I don't know. Guys, tell me what your thoughts is. I just feel like football is becoming a more variant sport than baseball, and that we can look at situations and be like, I'm okay with kill me now. Like, football is such a sport where they feature so many people. It's such a centralized, we're going to attack this part of somebody's defense that it's not, not one person might be eat all day. What do you think about that, Johnny?
Well, for me, I was off a lot of the landmines. We were talking Saturday. I was off Dak. I was off Fournette. Mm-hmm. I gave you guys my opinion mm-hmm. on those guys. But I think everybody's fadeable every week. I mean, I have to remember that sometimes too in my process. And I got so high on Antonio Brown this last week. I just thought it was going to be the turf show over there, and that was the landmine game. So if I wouldn't have been so high in Pittsburgh, I would have made a lot of money. But that's kind of catch-22 for me. Mm-hmm. So definitely, I think I talked myself, out of Prescott. I just think that Elliott does a lot for that team. It's just not about running the ball with him. He opens up a lot. I mean, you have to respect his game, so that gives Prescott a lot of opportunity to throw the ball. So I think that's one thing I really, really looked at there in that game. But I was really big on the Vikings offense. I was big on Thielen this week. I just didn't play enough of them. I didn't play enough. I didn't have Diggs at all. I didn't have Keenum. So that kind of could have swung my week. Made it into like a 360 change. So yeah.
That's weird. What about you, Kim? What do you think about that? About variance in football now?
Yeah, I mean, I agree 100%. I think like most of the time, last year it was a little more different. Like, it was way different than this year. Where last year I pretty much every lineup I played like DJ and Lev, and then filled in the rest. Now this year you're thinking a lot. You have to go into it, and I agree with you though. Like, I think everyone to a point is almost fadeable, just because with how in football the game plan change week to week, like how one guy can get used so heavy on a week to week basis, and then the next week he could pretty much absolutely get shut down based on his opponent, or just picking on like a opponent's weakness just doesn't call for that guy to really need to be used all that much. There's also game script, etc. So I think everyone's like very fadeable, and I think like we were discussing before, I think you have to let your emotions take your emotions out of it. You can really get attached to a player throughout the course of the week. I think it's different, like with baseball, how we were playing it. You play it every single day, so you don't really get attached to like a player all that much. You can get attached to him for like a quick streak here, like if he's hot for 3 games or whatever. But I think for football, if you start the week and like, for instance, this week with AB going against the Colts just in like a smash spot, I feel like you can really get attached to someone like throughout the week, going Monday, Tuesday, he's Colts suck, Thursday, Friday, and it just builds. And then next thing you know, you have 70% exposure AB, and he gets 6 points and just ruins your day. So I think I agree. I feel like we have to be minimizing like all-ins and probably decreasing like a certain amount of max exposure that we're getting to players, just based off the variance we're having this year in football. And you can obviously have your favorite plays and stuff, but I think we need to limit like the emotion we're putting into players and like attachment we're getting, because I agree with you. It's becoming pretty variant this year.
Because it's crazy. I mean, what'd you say?
Sorry, John. Speaking a little bit about if you want to reference, baseball and football together, you look at baseball, and baseball's been a very analytical game, and there's so much variance in there. And I think with a lot of the coaching staff getting younger and younger in the NFL, I think a lot of the games are getting more analytical. If you really look at that, I mean, any team can shut out any player at any time now. I mean, every team has these incredible athletes now. I think the athletes are getting better and better that the NFL is getting. So they have the talent there, and it doesn't matter if you're an 0-6 team or a 6-0 team. It doesn't really matter. You can shut any player out if you want to. Double them. You can do special, schemes. You can find out their weaknesses. There's so much software now. There's so many really, really smart guys that are working for these teams that will sit there and analyze video, and that's all they do. And they'll come up with certain schemes just to take a player out, and I remember that's in the beginning of the season, that's what the Patriots would do. They were focusing on the best player on the team and trying to take him out of the game. But, I think that they're taking out not just players, but they're taking out plays in series. Like they're like, that will not run against us anymore. You can't run that series of plays. You can't play that scheme against us, So I think the analytics are really improving in football. I think they were behind the times. And it's actually nice to see that they're actually changing the game a little bit. I mean, you can see last year was very predictable in the NFL, and I think this year definitely becoming a little bit more like baseball, and it's a little bit more variance for us.
Yeah. I mean, like, for instance, just real quick, next week, Travis Kelce. I mean, he's going to be the talk of the town. How can you not play him against this team, the Giants, that have given up a touchdown to every single tight end every week this year? Everybody's going to do it. You know what I'm saying? And first of all, what makes you think he's going to go 4 for 40 and they're not going to have a touchdown? He's not going to score next week. I mean, it's like that would be that's going to be the talking point to where it's like, are you going to fade him or not? Because why not? I mean, how much is he going to hurt you? Really? Is he really going to get 3? I don't think he's going to get 3.
Yeah, and then what if it's scripting it for Hunt? I mean, Hunt's been a forgotten man the last few weeks, and what if now it's a run game because we're going to be up by 4 touchdowns and we're just going to run the ball down
They're
going to
give up. Why would I keep going to him? You know what I'm saying?
I think the major thing too is like how these teams are going to scheme on a week-to-week basis for their opponents. Like last night I was watching that game and Denver triple-teamed Gronk like on the first couple possessions that New England had. And Brady's fine with just dumping it off and not forcing anything when there are certain quarterbacks that will force it. So you got to like think about that as well. But pretty much when like a team schemes, like triple teams a guy, like that's not going to be a successful night. So you also have to think about that. It's just really hard to account for when you're playing guys. But
yeah. All right. Well, that being said, that just gives you a little like, I want to do a little bit of strategy too, and that gives a little bit of strategy of what we're thinking about. Wrap your mind around thinking about being more variant and being okay to fade somebody and not being scared. Oh boy, we'll start off with quarterback. On FanDuel and DraftKings, the top quarterback yesterday was Kirk Cousins, then Jared Goff, Case Keenum, C.J. Beathard, and Deshaun Kaiser. I only wrote about one of those 4 guys of those 5 guys in my lineup. I mean, all the other guys we would not have been have expected. I mean, maybe Beathard a little bit just because you think the Giants gave up, so maybe he was cheap enough. But then you got Kirk Cousins. We thought Minnesota coming off the bye, that Rhodes, they just weren't going to throw that much. Goff we liked. I thought he was a great pivot off of Stafford. And he started out bad. If you watch that game, it was a second half. They blew up. So it was close for a half. Johnny, tell me, how about those 5, who you wound up playing at quarterback and maybe who you missed on, because of those 5, like I said, I only wrote about Goff and we only talked about Goff on the Wise stream. So what do you think?
Well, I actually brought up Beathard on the Wise
a little bit. Okay.
A little bit at the end, but I was going back and forth with Fitzpatrick and Beathard the whole week, and I just felt that I liked Beathard a lot, but I felt like the Giants could blow out the 49ers. That's where I was kind of looking at, and I felt that all the talk was on Tampa Bay and the Giants game or the Jets game, and it was gonna be a back and forth and all the revenge and let's just let all the viewers know this. Do not ever think that the NFL is like the NBA narratives. Don't worry about revenge. It doesn't mean anything in the NFL. So I got that in my head too much, and I played way too much Fitzpatrick. If I would have played Beathard instead again, I would have made a lot of money. But I only had about 10% of Beathard this week, and I did have a lot of Eli Manning as well, and he didn't put up a bad game, but it wasn't a Beathard game, and I did have some Goff. I was big on Goff, but when you have 90% Antonio Brown in your lineups, again, crush you.
All righty, Cam.
Who's the top five?
Top five was Cousins, Goff, Keenum, Beathard, and Kaiser.
Yeah. So I mean, the thing that we could talk about with like missing on Kirk Cousins was like he should always be in play at home in Washington. Like he has good home road splits, especially like. I mean, we could have said that, but I agree. Like Vikings had a bye week to prepare for them. Their wide receiver core hasn't been stable at all this year. That guy who came up the practice squad made that really good catch. But I don't know. I had in my article for my player pool, I wrote Brady, Ben, Eli, and then I had McCown, but I had 0% McCown just because Paulie said that he was at the game and it was rainy and like windy, like 20-mile-per-hour wind. So I deleted all those lineups and pivoted to some of those guys. And actually, my highest dollar team ended up with Goff, who I didn't write up, but I wrote up in like the sneaky stacks for like a Ram stack. So that ended up being my main highest dollar team. And then I had Eli and Brady. So those are my three quarterbacks this week. They didn't do bad, but I think Goff was one of the top, but Eli was serviceable, but nothing to win you much. And Brady was good too, but I paired him with Gronk, and that didn't work out well. I don't know. On Fitzpatrick, I was texting you, I think it was Sunday morning, and I was like, what was it? What day was it?
You hated it.
Yeah. I said, quote, I'm cringing every time I think of Fitz in a Wise Take members lineup. So I hated that. Like, if I don't know. I just don't like playing bad players who I know are gonna be high owned. Like, and all I heard was the hype of him playing against the Jets and stuff. So I wasn't on him at all. But I think probably my biggest miss would have been McCown, but I ended up not playing him because of the wind. But.
Yeah. All right. So before we get into running backs, let's go over the DraftKings lineup. This was the lineup. Let's see. He wound up finished with 215 points. I don't have who the winner was, but congratulations to you. Your life has changed, and if you're listening to this, thank you. Anyways, so he went with Goff and Gurley with Robert Woods and the Rams, basically a Ram stack, which got him, 15, and then Woods 6. Gurley had a decent day. Of the top running backs, I guess he did the best, and then Goff, which was good, only 10% owned, which was kind of sneaky. And then probably the guy that did it for him, the 7%, not even 1% owned, was DeMarco Murray. That was just, we'll get to running backs after that. Talk about his winning lineup, Johnny, and what you thought about it.
Yeah, definitely Ram stack. I mean, 2 weeks in a row, they were, huge. They came up huge. Goff was on the winning lineup last week. I had Goff last week when I finished 9th. So definitely a good play. I was off Robert Woods. I did stack in a couple lineups, Goff and Gurley. I didn't take any Rams defense this week, but definitely really great play there. I just was a little afraid it was going to be a little too chalky. That's why I didn't play Robert Woods this week in that stack, but I can see the merit to it. And then, as you were saying earlier, Rams did not have a good first half. They did come back in the second half. So, I think a lot of people were really, really hard on Fournette this week, and I thought that Gurley was a great pivot off of Fournette, and so you can kind of see how he was able to squeeze in what he was able to squeeze in.
Well, I mean, even with 19 points,
Yeah.
Gurley proved to be the best value of all the top guys because all the top guys and running backs were pieces of shit. So, Cam, what do you think about that lineup? I mean, what sticks out to you? I mean, to me, it's DeMarco Murray. You can be as chalky as you can, is that when you get a guy that's less than 1% owned goes off for 30 points.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just like, I don't know. I mean,
I'd love to see how many lineups he had.
Yeah,
right?
Maybe he had a reason for it, but like, I think that's kind of just variance in what we were talking about with the NFL. So he had three touchdowns, which was 18 of his 29 points. So that's 11 points outside the touchdowns since he ranked 7th DVOA versus the rush this year. He's in a timeshare with Derrick Henry over there in Tennessee against a pretty good defense. Like touche on the play, but it's just not a play for me. I don't really target guys going up against pretty good run defenses and
injury risks and has a timeshare.
Yeah, like there's a reason why he was 0.7% owned, but I like good for him, I guess. Like I don't know, but I think for just maybe it was a thing where he had his guys and that was the next highest guy that fit. But I like the Goff. I like the Goff and Robert Woods stack, of course. I think the Rams are always overlooked every single week. They're one of the highest scoring teams, if not the highest scoring team in the league on average points per game. And then I liked how he got a piece of that Pittsburgh air game and a piece of the Detroit air game, which were two of the more chalkier plays, but at the same time, he got a piece of it. So, and then he differentiated his lineup around it with some lower owned plays. Like you can see, I think Goff was chalky earlier on in the week, but then at the end of the week, he went down in ownership, which you can see. And then Shepard was chalky, but when you're able to get a guy who's 0.7% owned and gets you 30 points, for sure. But I agree. I think overall it was good. I just think the play that made him win it all, I just wouldn't have played. But
no, yeah.
And just to answer your question there, it's Sugarland 59 was his screen name, and he only had one entry.
Oh wow, good for him, dude.
That's
I tip my hat up to you, man. I bet you
actually first and second place, both won bullets.
Oh
wow, damn.
So Here's my thing. Here's a little side note with the Rams. In December, they have 2 home games. One's against the Saints. The other one's against the Eagles. That's going to be some good football. Okay, let's move on to running backs. Top 5 running backs last week, and then we'll get to the FanDuel Millie Maker lineup next. Top 5 running backs last week. Mark Ingram, DeMarco Murray, Austin Eckler, Alvin Kamara, and Todd Gurley. I will never play Ingram and Kamara together. I mean, I guess you could. They're proving to be viable. They ran it, I think it was 21 or 22 or 3 times in a row in that end of that game yesterday. I was watching that because I had Tyrod in my seasonal team. Thank you, Tyrod. And then DeMarco, like we said, I never would have been on him. We've talked about why we didn't be on him, but it almost goes to show you, like, it. To me, and you talk about running backs after this, Johnny, but to me, I feel like yesterday I felt like I had it all figured out in the NFL. Pay up for running back this year. Find value at receiver. This is what it's going to do. And even the value this week with Powell, Hyde, the value plays, Howard, the guys weren't even in the top tier. Were crappy. The guys that they said were going to do great, LaShawn McCoy, who does great at home, bad. Bell, Fournette, everybody. It was like Ingram was the most expensive guy that performed last week, and I don't know. I mean, what do you think? It was just an anomaly, and that we shouldn't worry about it, or is this like I was saying? It's starting to be the end of the year. Defenses are reacting to him. What do you think, Johnny?
Yeah, I was on the Bell train this week, and I started to look at all the top running backs that failed this week. I had a full fail on a full fade on Ingram just because of the the running back situation there with Kamara. I was much bigger on higher on Kamara, but I don't think it's a end of the season late. I think I think everybody's still prime right now. I just think that the Saints have so much depth now when it comes to running back, and their offensive line is much improved, and again their defense is much improved. Where I think that they become a running team, and they're trying to take the variance out of their game a little bit with their passing, with their limiting their passing. You look at a forgotten man in that passing offense, Snead, who the last 2 years he was really really big. He's getting maybe 1 or 2 targets a game at most, if any. And I think what threw a lot of people off this week, and I was actually on Snead a little bit because I read some stuff the coach was saying that we're going to get him more involved. He's going to be more involved in the offense. So I was off the running game a little bit this week. I thought the passing game was going to be a little bit bigger. And again, I had a full fade on Ingram because of that. So, and also with the Ingram news, with the doghouse about last week, about 2 weeks ago he had 2 fumbles. If he was going to fumble again, he's going to be benched and all this stuff. So, for me, it was a full fade, and I just think that maybe Breeze is getting a little bit older. Maybe he doesn't have it anymore. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure what's going on with the offense over there.
Well, I think that
some of the things I can think of.
I think that we also thought Buffalo was going to put up a little bit more of a fight, and they would have to pass more. I think we thought the game was going to be a little bit more more evenly matched. I thought. I mean, what was the spread going into it? Do we know? Do we have anything? I mean, it wasn't more than maybe 3 or 4 points. Saints might have been favored, but the Bills, had 10 days to prepare for this. Everybody thought it was going to have to. Breeze was going to have to throw more than he did, and then once they got ahead, he is completely. Sean Payton can just go at it and just run the ball, and he wins the game. Cam, talk to me more about running backs. The top 5. I know you were sleeping in bed with Fournette on Saturday night. So, what happened?
Yeah. So just touching on the New Orleans backfield, I think that might have been a little bit of a miss on my part. Just with the fact that they traded away their best run stopper in Marcel Darius. Mm-hmm. I should have maybe paid more attention to that and maybe looked into that a little bit more. For me, though, I just don't always like playing New Orleans players on the road, especially if you have to go up to Buffalo, which is usually a more physical game, not on turf, it's outdoors, obviously. So it's just not usually what I do. So that's kind of why I just didn't play them. Also, they're in a timeshare. Like, you never know who's going to get the ball. Obviously, this week, 2020 hindsight, we can say both of them did. But at the time, you don't really know who's going to be the guy getting those touches on a consistent basis and whatever. So that might have been a little bit of a miss, just ignoring some of their personnel for Buffalo. But, yeah, for me, it was Fournette. I wish I would have listened to the Y stream, but I was just watching my Badgers make it on their way to the college football playoff. So I couldn't watch it, and I probably would have benefited from that because Johnny was full fade, so I would have listened to that and probably would have downgraded him a little bit, maybe one of my 3 lineups. For me, just coming off of rest, he's always an injury concern. So I thought that with him being well rested, he'd be able to come in. I know the Chargers got a couple guys back on their personnel, but for me, that wasn't a huge concern. The Jags have been blocking well this year. I don't know. I just thought it was a good spot for him. And then, honestly, I took a big hit. I got wide receiver right. I was pretty average on quarterback. I bombed on running back this week. I
think everybody did.
Yeah, I had Fournette because of volume, and I think he's a talented player. I had Howard against the Packers. I thought he would get a lot of touches and be able to break a couple against Green Bay. Not touchdowns, but just some nice runs. I had Hyde, who I told you I didn't think he was going to get the targets like everyone was talking about, but I thought he'd be able to. He got 98 yards on the ground, but I think just missing the touchdown there at 6.7K on FanDuel.
Well, they got to give him more carries. That's the thing.
Exactly.
That's the problem.
Beathard probably took one away from him.
Howard only got 15 carries. I mean, these coaches, they don't know what they're doing. I don't get it sometimes. So
yeah. So the guy averages 40 carries a game, and then of course when you pick him, he gets 15. But whatever. And then Powell with the value, I played him over on DraftKings just at 4K starting, and then McGuire gets more touches than him, or more snaps than him actually. So that was a little disappointing. There's just things you just don't know what the coach's game plan is going to be ultimately. You can try and guess what it's going to be, but at the end of the day, you don't really have an idea. So I guess maybe try and limit variance limit variance at what you can control, I guess, like knowing a guy's going to be in a situation where he's going to play, not snaps and everything. But yeah, was good on quarterback, good on wide receiver, but absolutely bombed running back. So I apologize if anyone listened to me on the running back.
Don't feel bad. Everybody, I think, pretty much got running back wrong. I mean, when I wrote that list, I mean, look at that. Only one guy was really chalky, and that was Gurley. But, I mean, Gurley wasn't even that much. So, I mean, let's go over really quick the FanDuel winning lineup. I got to say, this guy, he comes out, his quarterback was Keenum, and he had Gurley again with Ingram and Thielen, with A.J. Green, Shepard, Vernon Davis, Greg Zuerlein, and the Rams D. Once again, as you could see, both defenses were the Rams. Zuerlein and the Rams D pretty much seems like a good pair lately. And, see Gurley there. I mean, he only got 16 points, but when it comes to, compared to the other top running backs, he was better than all of them, and everybody usually had at least one of those in their lineups. And then you have Ingram. I don't know what was his percentage owned in that? I'd say under 5%, right? And then probably Thielen was the play that everybody thought. I think we knew that he was going to be good, but I don't think we knew that he was going to be that good.
What percentage did you want to know, Joe? Sorry about that.
Ingram,
he was 3.1% owned.
Yeah.
Really.
I mean, that's how you win it. I mean, look, but it's not even that off the wall. Look at this lineup, people. This lineup is not that off the wall, except for maybe Case Keenum. I mean, nobody there. I'd be like, you're crazy.
No,
you know what I'm saying? And it's not, so you're not that far away from it. Keenum was the one was the guy that he had that was different.
Yeah, Keenum. But if you would have you probably could have pivoted to Kirk Cousins or whatever, which would have been more reasonable in that game. And then that lineup 100% looks completely normal if you add Cousins in there. So yeah, it's weird.
So I mean, he did great, and he had Sterling Shepard and AJ Green and Thielen, and those got you almost 70 points. It's good right there, and then you don't need much from the tight end. But once again, like I said, he nailed defense and kicker. That's an extra 32 points. And, that's what's going to win you some money sometime. Johnny, before we move on to receiver, tell us about a contest that you got going for NBA on Wednesday night to Thursday.
Yeah, so we have a contest coming up a Wednesday night. We're going to announce it. It's going to be during the NBA YouTube show. So if you guys want to give us a view for that show, and we'll announce what we're going to do and what the contest is for and what the prize is, and we'll go from there.
Now, is it are you going to come over to somebody's house and professionally make them a dinner? Because you said you were chef. You know what I mean? Like, is that on the table? Because I'd love to see you cook. No? Okay. No. What's your favorite dish? What's your best dish?
Man, I'm all over the place. I'd say my favorite thing to make, I'm a big paella guy. I like paella. I like seafood a lot. So I'd say that's probably my favorite thing to make for myself.
I'd love to have that someday. All right.
We live close enough. We can arrange that.
We're going to get together and you're going to make paella. my wife loves to cook, so that's
cool.
Awesome. So let's move on to receivers. Sorry about that, Cam. We didn't want to exclude you there. Do you like paella, Cam? Have you ever had paella?
I didn't even know that was a word before he said it. So
I love Cam. He's such a millennial. It's just so perfect. He teaches me these new words like cuck and boolin. It's so awesome. All right. I love it. It's like every day, like this is a new word, and it's just awesome. It keeps me up with the times. Let's move on to receiver. I'm going to go through the top 5 receivers. We'll go through that, and then we'll go through the tight ends. We'll get on out of here. Top 5 receivers. We got Robert Woods, Thielen, Shepard, Chester Rogers, and AJ Green. I wrote about 4 of those 5. Obviously, nobody's going to have Rogers. 2 of those were the chalk that went off. Sterling Shepard, and Green. I said Shepard or Sterling. Anyways, I'm getting it mixed up. And AJ Green, those are the 2 that went off. But Woods and Thielen were obviously the plays to have. I had them in my article, and I liked them. I wasn't like locked into them. When you look at those values, I mean, obviously there's a couple options in every tier. So, and then if you go a little bit further down, then you got a couple of the guys that Michael Thomas, Golden Tate. Brandon LaFell is another guy that jumped out. If you had Brandon LaFell, we weren't on that. And then Hopkins, even Hopkins, once again, man, you were right on that, Cam. You were right on Hopkins. 21 points. He's almost 3X. He was great. I mean, that he's still going to get involved almost every week. We'll see this week, Patrick Peterson on him. But, most weeks I like that as just a value play because he's going to be involved. Devontae Adams and Marquise Lee mix up. Marquise Lee is starting to become a very dependable player too. Johnny, talk to me about the receivers yesterday.
Yeah, so I was really big on Green and Thielen. We talked about him on the Saturday show, Thielen a little bit, but big on Green. He saved my night at the end of the day when he had a big play, but before that he was stinking it up just like Brown for a long, long time. So kind of glad he had that big play. And then I was off Woods. I mean, if I would have been on Woods, it would have been a whole different game changer. But Green, Thielen. I'm surprised Thielen was so low owned. I look at the Millie maker for FanDuel, and he was only 7% owned. So I was a little, surprised with that because the matchup was great for that. So Green, I knew he was going to be chalky, but you know what? I was going to eat the chalk there. And Brown was my big bullet that I took, and it was just a negative correlation for me. So I think that going forward, I don't think you're ever going to hear me saying 100% on anybody ever again.
Yeah, I mean, my tournament, Thielen was 4.7% owned, and I don't play in the huge tournaments, so I mean, that was still like I felt like he was a great play because we talked about it. Norman was going to take Diggs out, which Diggs still had a decent game. If played him in seasonal, he did okay. Yeah, so Cam, how'd you do? I mean, obviously I said about Hopkins, you had him. I remember we talked about him.
Yeah.
And Tate, we both deducted that Tate was a better play than Marvin Jones, and it was true.
100%. Yeah.
Even though, believe it or not, though, McCourty only shadowed. He stayed on one side. He didn't shadow Jones.
Yeah, that's weird.
He just had a bad game. Like Cleveland doesn't give up a lot of big plays. They keep everything underneath. That's why Tate did what he did. But even Tate at the end, he needed that one big play, or he wouldn't have made value either. So what do you got?
That was part of the reason why we played Tate, though.
Yeah.
Because like we were discussing, like Tate's a guy who they move around. He gets in open space, and then he does a lot with that open space, and is very elusive. So I mean, that was part of the reason why we picked him. But so I put AB in my player pool, but like I couldn't fit him in, so I didn't force him in. So I ended up playing 0 AB. I played Hopkins. Hopkins was my favorite play of the week because I did 100% fade AJ Green. So I just dropped down, and Hopkins was there. I think they're very alike in talent, except Hopkins gets 3 times the volume almost, and AJ Green's been really inconsistent this year, and it's kind of shown. I mean, the last couple weeks, and if he wouldn't have got that 70-yard touchdown, he would have finished with 6 targets, 4 receptions for like 45 yards and like 6 points. So with 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter, I was looking at that. I was like, dang, that Hopkins call actually worked out. And then I saw the notification, and it was AJ Green 70-yard touchdown. I was like, damn. So that kind of sucked, but still I was confident with that, and I thought Hopkins ended up still being a decent play. Tate, like we talked about, I had in my player pool for the reasons why I said I didn't want to go full Detroit chalk like stack, but I wanted to get a piece of it, so I threw in Tate to a couple lineups. Then I also had Robbie Anderson and Curse, but I didn't play any of them either because of the wind and rain and stuff, so I just went completely off that game. And then I had Juju and Shepard, so Juju had 95 and a touchdown, and Shepard had a really good game as well. So wide receivers, I actually had a really good day on. I think if you played like Hopkins, Tate, Juju, Shepard, you would ended up having a pretty good day if you could combine it with some running backs. And I've just like I like getting pieces of offenses that like pass offenses that are chalky, but I like getting just a little piece of it and possibly like the lower owned part of that chalky passing attack. So that's why I went Juju. I know he might have been a little bit chalkier, but I thought maybe AB might be just as high owned, and I thought they both had the same ceiling per dollar, I guess. So that's why I went.
All right, good. Okay, so we're going to speed it up just a little bit. We got to get out of here in 5 minutes. I got the producer in my ear saying we got to get out of here in 5 minutes. So real quick, though, could you believe in my main seasonal team, I played somebody who had Murray, Thielen, and Robert Woods. Yeah, I didn't win. Yeah, that's tough. Okay, so I'm going to do tight end real quick. Let's go over to tight end. Top 5 tight ends: Hooper, Selleck, Ingram, Davis, and Jason Witten. The only guy that obviously Garrett Selleck. We talked about him, and we didn't think that he was going to get that much. We just thought maybe one catch. And, he had 6 targets. He had 67 yards and a touchdown. And then we had Austin Hooper. Nobody really was on him. I wasn't, at least. And all the other guys, Ingram, the Niners were good, so we didn't think he was going to get that much. I mean, he still only got 31 yards. So it wasn't really like tight end kind of sucked in general. So you didn't really need to have that much. I had Rudolph, and he got 8 points and didn't kill me. So real quick, Johnny, so we can move on, because I know you got to get out for basketball. Real quick, talked about tight ends, and then we'll talk about defenses in like 2 seconds.
Yeah, so I was really big on Ebron, I was big on Brait, and I was big on Selleck. Those were my 3 tight ends I had this week. I didn't have enough Selleck. I had too much Brait. And I faded Ingram in the most part. He was just too expensive on DraftKings. He was like 6,200. I mean, that's like Kelsey prices. Why would I want to pay that for Ingram? But that's pretty much where my thought was. Hindsight 2020, I should have gone more with Selleck. I just thought that Hyde was going to get more touches in the passing game, but he obviously didn't. So,
yeah, Cam.
Yeah, I mentioned
Gronk. So
yeah, I mentioned Selleck in the podcast, and I wrote him up in the article. But other than that, I played 100% Gronk, which I'm fine with. I thought tight end was a very weak position this week, so I paid up to try and if he went bananas, then it would have been a good day, but didn't work out.
Yeah, and then defense, defenses, the Falcons wound up being the best defense. If you would have told me, I guess we just didn't think that the loss of Tyron Smith was going to hurt them that much. It's not like they turned the ball over twice, but they got all those sacks, and that's what really boosted the Falcons' defense. But then we got the Rams, Bucks, Lions, and Chargers. We thought about the Rams and the Lions, Bucks, and Chargers. We just weren't on. It just isn't, that just wasn't how what we were thinking. The Saints might be a defense going forward. We might have to constantly start thinking about. Obviously, what they did the other on Sunday was impressive. So, talk to me about defenses. Obviously, we all missed on the Bears. full disclosure, we all missed on the Bears. We thought that was going to be a good play. Cam's probably happy because, it was against Green Bay and they won the game. So he's probably like talking to all of his Bears fans and everything. Hey, we beat you guys. Hey, yo, you got to eat my cheese today. Because we beat you. Yeah. Okay, anyway, so talk to me about some defenses, Mr. John.
Yeah, we were all in the Bears, and you think about it, why were we all the Bears? I mean, because Green Bay sucks, and so does the Bears. So that was a horrible play from all of us. I was on the Rams a little bit, not enough Rams exposure. I'm always on the Saints. The Saints have a pick six upside every week. I mean, they're really good defense, really really good defense. I mean, look at what they've scored the last 4 weeks. They've had really really big weeks, and there's still a lot of people that aren't giving them that respect that they deserve. So, I think the Rams was the differentiating play for me. If I would have had more of them, it would have been a better week. I mean, you're seeing the Rams defense in everything. Jags, I faded the Jags. The Jags were a lot of people on the podcast picked the Jags. Were big on the Jags, and I wasn't so high on the Jags. I had a full fade on them, and definitely as Cam was talking about earlier, there was a lot of swing going on in that game. There's some score changes at the end, and some I think there was a pick six or there's something that was called back in that game when I was talking to Cam in the chat. So
yeah, and they almost ran back in overtime. They got stopped on the 1 yard line.
Yeah, there's a pick six called back, and the guy then in overtime he intercepted it and ran it to the 1 yard line, and he couldn't have dove and stretched out to the pylon. Yeah. He just took a hit from an offensive. I was like, "Are you serious?"
We were right there for being another 12 points. I mean, and then they have 17. The run on the punt, the special teams, because that was special teams. So
they should have had 100. But the Bears, I thought the Bears D wasn't a terrible play. Like we've seen that when they played Carolina. I like playing the Bears D at home because they're a little better and they have a good red zone defense. And it was kind of crappy weather in Chicago, and Brett Huntley didn't look good. They didn't let him throw the ball like past 5 yards on whatever night that was against the Lions. So I didn't think it was terrible. Obviously, it didn't turn out well, but like, I don't know. I would do it again if I had to.
Yeah.
Hindsight 2020 though. But I mean, the Bears are just bad. I mean, I played them. Like, don't get me wrong. I paid like 90% of them, so it is what it is. But I mean, I wouldn't do it again. If I look back at it now, I should have rethought my thought process.
Write it down. Don't play the Bears. All right, guys. Well, listen. That's gonna do it. That's going to do it for us. We got to get on out of here. We got to get into basketball. So, anyways, pleasure for everybody joining us for episode 1 of the lineup review show. I thank Johnny joining us today. And of course, my man Cam, thank you for joining us. And for Patio Joe, we are out.